We continue with our series on the book of Ecclesiastes, third chapter, beginning verse 1. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And then there is the iteration of a number of these sort of balancing activities. And the one that I'm looking at today is verse 5. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. Now, my grandson is a great scatterer. He's a year and a half old. You know, you give him Legos, they're scattered stones, definitely scattered food, they're scattered. He's much more of a scatterer than a gatherer. Now, I am more of a gatherer. I like to, help people find their way forward and, to organize, plan, all that kind of thing. Very much of a gathering kind of person. But, you don't really always get a choice about these sorts of things. I mean, the last few years have just been utter chaos with COVID and all the kinds of things that are taking place in our society that have just pulled us away from our moorings and made it difficult for us to continue life as we had been. It just seems like our stones are being scattered. The ones that we held on to, the ones that we had under our feet a long time and seemed like they were definitely going to be there a long time longer. Well, now they're scattered. You can be upset about that. You can be afraid because of that. But, it's going to happen whether you like it or not, whether you fight against it or not. There's just times for scattering and there's times for gathering. So during these times of scattering, we need to be aware that sometimes a thing needs to be taken apart before it can be put together, again, whole. And I think in some places in our society, there are things that have long outlasted their purpose, long gone past the time when they should have been reevaluated and done differently, and they hadn't been. But now with the scattering, now they can be rebuilt and be rebuilt better. And if we just rail against this and fight against this and demand that it go back together the way it was before, we can make ourselves pretty miserable about it. But we're not going to change it. It's still going to happen. Now, I don't mean to respond to this passively. Oh, well, everything's just, messed up and thrown up in the air and nothing I can do about it. And that's not what I mean. We do gather when it's time to gather. And we try to plan. We try to find our way forward in God's kingdom. We try to recognize the sovereignty of God through the chaos, through the scattering, and hope and pray and believe and act in such a way as to know that there is a way forward, that there is a way that we're going to come out on the other side with our stones gathered back together and life in a place that makes sense again and is now ready to come into contact with the world as it is and not how as we imagined it many years ago when we had that first structure of stones. So let us celebrate the scattering because we can't stop it anyway.